Venezuela is a country that was never supposed to fail. On paper, it had everything: a strategic location, a young population, and beneath its soil, the largest proven oil reserves on Earth. For decades, policymakers in Washington saw Venezuela as a country blessed by history, a natural partner, a stable oil supplier, and a potential success story in Latin America. But inside Venezuela, the story felt very different. To many Venezuelans, this enormous wealth never truly belonged to them. It felt distant, controlled, unevenly distributed, and deeply political. This is not the story of a sudden collapse. It is the story of a slow erosion of institutions, trust, and economic reality. And to understand how Venezuela collapsed, we must go back long before socialism, long before Hugo Chávez, to the foundations of the state itself. When Venezuela gained independence from Spain in the early 19th century, it did not emerge as a strong, unified nation. Unlike the United States, which built its independence around a written constitution, checks and balances, and civilian control of power, Venezuela entered independence dominated by military leaders. Power belonged not to institutions, but to men who commanded armies. For decades, the country was ruled by caudillos, strong men, who governed through loyalty, force, and fear. Governments rose and fell through coups, not elections. Law existed on paper, not in practice. From the perspective of many Western historians, this era planted a permanent weakness, a state without durable institutions. From a Latin American perspective, this instability was seen as the inevitable legacy of colonial exploitation, a system never designed to create strong local governance. Either way, the outcome was the same. Venezuela learned how to survive political chaos, but never how to govern itself effectively. In the early 20th century, Venezuela discovered oil. Not modest reserves, not temporary wealth, but oil on a scale that would redefine the country's future. Almost overnight, Venezuela became geopolitically important. American oil companies arrived with capital, technology, and expertise. From Washington's point of view, this was a mutually beneficial relationship. Investment in exchange for energy security. And for a time, it worked. By the 1950s, Caracazo was one of the most modern cities in the region. Venezuelans enjoyed higher living standards than much of Europe. Immigration flowed into Venezuela. But oil did more than generate wealth. It reshaped society. Work and productivity became less important than access to the state. The government became the center of opportunity. Oil revenue replaced long-term planning. Inside Venezuela, a quiet question began to form. Who truly owns this wealth? Supporters of state control argued that foreign companies benefited more than ordinary citizens. Elites defended the system as the price of global integration. Between these views, one reality emerged. Venezuela had built an economy dependent on a single resource and a political culture dependent on easy money. In 1958, Venezuela transitioned to democracy. From the outside, especially in the United States, it looked like a success. Regular elections, political stability, strong diplomatic ties with Washington. But this democracy was fundamentally different from the American model. The Venezuelan state did not rely on citizens for revenue. It relied on oil. That distinction changed everything. Governments could spend without taxing. Politicians could promise without accountability. Corruption became systemic rather than exceptional. Supporters of the system argued that oil-funded democracy provided social peace. Critics argued it created a political class disconnected from the population. Both were partially right. As long as oil prices remained high, the illusion held. But history is unforgiving to systems built on temporary conditions. In the 1980s, global oil prices collapsed. Suddenly, Venezuela confronted reality. Debt exploded. Inflation surged. The middle class, once the backbone of stability, collapsed. In 1989, protests erupted across the country. The government responded with force. Hundreds were killed. From a Western economic perspective, this was the result of fiscal mismanagement and over-reliance on oil. From the perspective of the streets, it was betrayal. This moment did not just damage the economy, it destroyed belief. Faith in political parties vanished. Trust in markets collapsed. Democracy itself came into question. And when trust disappears, people stop asking for reform. They start demanding radical change. Hugo Chávez did not appear by accident. He emerged from anger, humiliation, and economic trauma. He spoke directly to the poor. He rejected elites. He openly challenged the United States. In Washington, Chávez was viewed as a dangerous populist. Inside Venezuela's poorest neighborhoods, he was seen as a savior. When oil prices surged in the early 2000s, it seemed as if history had chosen his side. Massive social programs expanded. Poverty temporarily declined. Chávez became untouchable. But beneath the surface, institutions were being dismantled. Independent courts weakened. Private investment collapsed. The state absorbed everything. Supporters saw justice. Critics saw control. History would soon judge outcomes, not intentions. Chávez did not build a productive economy. He built a system that depended entirely on continued oil revenue. The private sector shrank. The state expanded. Reality was ignored. Supporters believed the old system had been replaced. Opponents warned that the country had lost its ability to correct mistakes. When institutions lose independence, mistakes compound. And when oil prices fell after 2014, the system collapsed instantly. After Chávez's death, Nicolás Maduro inherited a broken structure. Hyperinflation destroyed salaries. Food shortages became routine. Hospitals collapsed. Millions fled the country. When U.S. sanctions were imposed, two narratives emerged. From Washington's perspective, sanctions responded to an already failed authoritarian system. From the opposing view, sanctions deepened suffering and accelerated collapse. But by then, the damage was irreversible. Venezuela's story is not simple. It is not a tale of pure villainy or pure victimhood. It is a lesson about power without accountability, wealth without institutions, promises without limits. From an American perspective, Venezuela warns against politicizing the economy. From its supporters' view, it exposes historic inequality and foreign pressure. History, however, does not debate intentions. It records results. And Venezuela's result
is one of the clearest warnings of the modern era.
Venezuela did not fail because it lacked resources. It failed because it never learned how to manage power. And history never forgives that mistake.